found this a very interesting meeting and a reason for reflection, and I guess my reflections are basically very optimistic. If we look at the second half of the last century, there was a predominant image of the researcher or the scientist as eccentric, dangerous, the atom bomb, all sorts of things like that, and otherworldly, and you would see some composite creature looking a bit like Albert Einstein, but maybe without some of his more appealing human characteristics. 20 years ago, I found myself in the Royal Society of London chairing a press conference, and it was about a press conference about the discovery of nitrogen on a meteorite that had come from Mars. And so there was a big interest in the possibility of life on Mars. And the professor who was giving the presentation was, quite careful. He talked about nitrogen, talked about how if there was nitrogen there might be ammonia, and started making an explanation. We had a lot of journalists there, and the response to this explanation was, the journalist said, "So how big was this then? How big was this animal?" And the scientists explained again, "No, this is nitrogen we have found, and there might be ammonia." So another journalist said, "So about the size of a cat then?" And we had in the newspapers lots of cartoons with pictures of funny little men with bubbles, and obviously the cat that might have been on Mars. 20 years on, we now find research it's important, it's interesting, and it's international. University of Edinburgh, we are the proud hosts of Peter Higgs, and obviously we, working with CERN, were concerned with news management. When they had the wonderful press conference on July the 4th, you had extremely good television coverage, and the commentators from CERN were very good. And then around the world, the work at CERN on the Higgs boson and the Large Hadron Collider was on the front pages of all sorts of newspapers. And what was startling to me was the quality of the writing. That people, the journalists, were writing in an accurate way, and Peter Higgs and his fellow scientists were not turned into some sort of caricature. So this seems to me extremely positive. When I say science and research is seen as important, this is something I'm very aware of as the head of one of Europe's major research universities. When there are issues on the environment and climate, issues on health, on development, on secure society, justice, most recently, very compellingly, when there are the issues on food security, where do people look? Where do the politicians look? They look to the universities with the research competence. They see us as, here we have a problem with healthy aging, here we have a problem with hamburgers, should we trust to eat them? And they look to the universities. We are seen as important. The economic growth argument, and that was made very, very clearly, that is an underlying one, and the politicians are aware of that. But there is also the issues of, we have a problem with food, we have a problem with health, with let us say SARS. Where do people look? So the importance is clear. The interest, I think, is very clear too. We've had in this meeting lots of accounts of the use of digital and social media as applied to research issues. On British television now we have Brian Cox, who's, if I can put it this way, a young pop star physicist with a tremendous following, and he looks very attractive, but he's not singing songs, he's talking about physics. We have David Attenborough on biological issues, a big following. And at the University of Edinburgh we have launched recently 6 of these MOOCs, these massive open online courses. We're doing that in partnership with Coursera at Stanford. We have a MOOC called Astrobiology and the Search for Extraterrestrial Life. It has 40,000 people studying it. They're in groups, and there are different parts of Europe, including randomly Kazakhstan and Kosovo, where there are local groups who are studying astrobiology and the search for extraterrestrial life, and they are interested. And this is obviously a way forward, and we know that there are lots of citizen astronomers who do galaxy sorting for the big European telescopes. There are lots of citizen biologists who sort taxonomies of flora and taxonomies of fauna. So there is an interest. I guess as one slightly different emphasis I would put to many people is, I mean, Europe is very nice and it's very interesting, and I'm a European, but research is not European. Research is fundamentally international. A few weeks ago I was in Delhi with Rolf Hoyer, the Director General of CERN. We had a big conference on the Higgs boson, very appropriate to be in India, of course, because S.N. Bose is an Indian, so we have to remind ourselves it isn't just Scottish. Higgs boson is not just Scottish, it's Scottish-Indian, if you were to give it an international characteristic. But what is obviously very striking is meeting many Indian physicists who had been going backwards and forwards and working with CERN. So, CERN may be, in one level, European, but actually when you look at the scientists who are at CERN or the scientists around the world who, through the World Wide Web, are using it, this is genuinely international. So this is a world project. Likewise, at Edinburgh, we are very concerned with stem cell and regenerative medicine. And one of our biggest partners, or our biggest partner actually, are universities in China, and we work across there. And we get a lot of advantage working with very advanced Chinese scientists. In 2 weeks' time I shall be in Brazil. University of Edinburgh does an awful lot on renewables, and we have a big connection with Brazil. So, the European country, if I'm sitting as the head of the University of Edinburgh, well, the European countries are important. China, India, Brazil are also very important, and these are world projects. In terms of communications, and media, there is a sweet spot that one can sometimes get. We have had it twice in recent history at Edinburgh, and the sweet spot is made up of an icon, a result, and some impact. So we have Ian Wilmot with Dolly the sheep. That's a lovely icon. You can think about the sheep. You have a result, the cloning technology, and then you have an impact, which in this case is regenerative medicine and the possibility of addressing neurodegenerative diseases. But interestingly, stem cells also for generation of blood, for bone, for skin, as well as that. Obviously, the other sweet spot for Edinburgh is the Higgs boson, the so-called God particle. So that's quite iconic. You've got the result, the data from the Large Hadron Collider, and then you've got all sorts of impacts, the World Wide Web, the use of highly focused radiation in cancer therapy, lots of impacts beyond the intellectual. What next? Well, I think it's very important we use the technology, we take advantage of it, we support open access to data, open access to publications, we support research-led learning. I mean, the thing about the 6 MOOCs, and the massive open online courses that Edinburgh has, we have 307,000 people studying them. And this is technologically supported learning, but it's technologically supported learning that comes from leading research. And we support citizen science. I think for me, the big piece of optimism is using the technology and using the new, much more positive attitude the media has to research. We can aim for a more democratic, more inclusive, research agenda, and as part of that I strongly support what Atomium Culture is doing in relation to media work and also in relation to REI search. Thank you very much.